Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing unblocking abundance. My guest is Tabby Halsrud. She's the creator of Embrace Her. She's an advocate for spiritual abundance and whole self well-being. She also supports single mompreneurs and busy career moms who are seeking more balance, joy, and freedom. Tabby, welcome to MoneyHeart.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here today.
Yes, very glad to have you on the show. You felt you had a weird connection with money. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it has ranged across the whole continuum of experiences. But I think what really started to come to light for me over the last few years is understanding that I was blocking money, blocking abundance, right? And just all the vibes I was putting out around it were really just not positive, welcoming vibes for abundance or money. So I've just always had kind of a love-hate relationship with money, and realizing like how that is actually manifesting in my life in terms of beliefs and things I said and how I operated and all of the stuff. When I saw all of that happening was really like mind-blowing, and I had to kind of take a pause and do a lot of work on that.
Right, yeah. So you were one of those people that's not really motivated or inspired by money or anything like that. How did that affect your business and your life? What impact did that have?
Yeah, so for me, I'm one of those internally motivated people. I do what I do to help people, to make a difference, to serve, all the things. And so how that was playing out is like, I would say things like, well, money's not all that important to me. That's not why I do what I do. I do it for this stuff over here. Money at the end of the day, yeah, I want to have a successful business, but money isn't what drives me. Money's not that important. So it's just all those beliefs and thought processes were coming out in my words, action, and behavior. And unfortunately, that was impacting my business in a huge way, because literally blocking money from coming in, right? Because I'm literally like telling the universe, like, oh, I don't need money, I'm good.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I don't really like that stuff.
Yeah. So just really paying attention to the things I was saying, either running through my head, saying it that way mentally, or saying out loud to people or in conversation, things I was writing down. So it really was just kind of creating a sticking point and a block in my business and my life in general, and just not being open to any kind of, money. And so that creates a problem when you're trying to run a business, obviously.
It helps if you're bringing money in to run your business, for sure. Yeah. I know we're going to talk about kind of the work that you did to get past that mindset and unblock the money, but while you were doing that, did you figure out what it was that caused you to be that way in the first place? How did you set up this money doesn't matter, please don't send me any, it's not important kind of mindset?
Yeah, I would say for me, it was a variety of things kind of coming together. So like, what I've learned about kind of our money stories and our money blocks is that our money stories are created through our entire life through a variety of situations, right? So it could be everything from how we're raised and how, that money story that starts to solidify in our childhood, either by what our parents do or don't say around money, or even just picking up on, how our parents are reacting around money, right? So do you grow up in a home where you feel like there's always tension about money, or do you grow up in a home where you feel like there's plenty of money and there's no tension about it at all, or something in between, right? So it starts way back there. But then as you go through life and you have different experiences with money and abundance and, even things like love and joy, like to me, it's all similar in terms of if we're blocking it or welcoming it, right? And so all the life experiences that we have kind of feed into that. What are we hearing media say? What are we hearing about our roles specifically as women, right? Like I've struggled a lot with that. Like, what is everybody else saying my role as a woman is, or my role as a mother is, or my role as a wife was, or, all the things. And all of that stuff, we hear it and we internalize it. And when you have a certain money story developing, then all of your experiences and all the stories that you're hearing outside of yourself are feeding into what you already are starting to believe to be true. So it's kind of like whatever it is you're seeking to validate is going to get validated, right? So if you're seeking to validate that story that, well, money just is hard to make, or money doesn't grow on trees, or, some of the language that I hear people use, dirty money, things like that, right? All those kinds of things feed into and impact that money story. So for me, it was a gamut. And even I would say, like, I started in corporate America, right? Like, I worked for other people for many years, and my money blocks were even very active back then in terms of, whether it was not asking for a raise, or always letting myself be underpaid, or not wanting to have those awkward conversations to begin with, or not standing up for myself when I felt like I wasn't getting paid enough, or not negotiating well, anything from, what you're getting paid to buying a car to, whatever those things are. Just not doing that well because I didn't like to talk about money, right? So my money stories, my money beliefs, this lack mindset that I developed have all been developing over the course of my life. So the good news is, like, you see it, but then it's also challenging because you have been developing that your entire life, and you need to do a lot of work to start to shift that.
Right. That's true that, you were talking about the confirmation bias. Whenever you believe something, you find things to support that belief. Yeah. It's just the way our brains work. We're not naturally going to go look for things that don't support our beliefs. We're going to look for things that do. And anything that doesn't, we will throw out unless we're really consciously looking for it and wanting to make that change. I also loved how you pointed out this doesn't just impact one area of life. Like, oh, well, I just don't have a lot in my bank account. It impacted you in buying a car, in your relationship, in what you were doing at work, whether you would negotiate for your salary or not. Like, it crossed over into pretty much everything that was going on with you.
Yeah, it really did. It really did.
So what did you do to make the shift and unblock the abundance, to change your mindset about money and start putting that message out there of like, hey, I would really like to have some of that stuff?
Yeah, it's been several things, but there's a couple in particular that I wanted to talk about today. I think the biggest thing, the most important thing, was understanding that I was blocking it to begin with, right? Because I think a lot of times this becomes a habit, a way of thinking, a pattern. We're not even aware of it. So for me, it was coming to awareness that I was doing it. And I caught myself saying things to people like, oh, money's not that important, or, just different things that I would say out loud. I don't like talking about money, gosh, money is so hard. It's hard to make money. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do that. Just like literally throwing out all these things. And so I wasn't realizing what I was doing until I started really exploring, why am I not making as much money as I want to be making? Like, what's happening here? And reading books, talking to people, doing a little digging into that. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always looking to continue to grow and evolve and better myself. And so it just kind of became part of my journey and understanding, like, the ways I was blocking love, joy, abundance, all the things, like I was blocking all of them. And so really, like, paying attention to the words I was saying, the beliefs I had. I mentioned to you when we were talking before, like, I've also struggled with like self-esteem, confidence, self-love kind of stuff. So all of that kind of came together and just made this big ball of wax, basically, that I had to start like kind of picking apart a little bit and being like, what's happening here? So basically, definitely the awareness piece was huge, coming to awareness of it, and then really going deep in what are my beliefs about money and abundance and even love and joy. What are the beliefs that have become ingrained in me? How are those, how am I living those? And then doing the work to really heal that kind of stuff and lean more into I am deserving of love. I am deserving of abundance. I am deserving of joy, and starting to make the shift to living by those beliefs instead of living by the lack mindset, as I had been doing my whole life. So that's been a big part of my work, is really just reframing the money beliefs, the money stories, the way I was talking about money, and shifting it to I had to really help myself understand that, yes, I'm not motivated by money itself. Like, that's not why I do what I do. I want to have a successful business. I want to make a huge difference in people's lives. Money itself is what motivates me. But understanding that I can't do the things I want to do and help people the way I want to help them and serve the way I want to serve if I'm not making money. Right? Yeah. So really having to reframe my beliefs around that, and then having to do a lot of work on, why money is important and why it's okay to talk about money, and why it's not a bad thing to want to have an abundant life and to create wealth for myself, and what that means for me, why it's important, all those things, right? And I have this big dream of this life I want to eventually be living, and I'm starting to move down that path. But I had to really look at and understand that you can't do that if you're not making money and you're not creating wealth, So just, it's been this ongoing body of work I've been doing for the last, off and on for the last couple of years, but really intensely for the last year, just really going deep into all of those blocks and the healing that needed to occur, and the reframing and the reshifting and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about work, I'm not sure that everybody kind of knows how that is. They go, okay, so she worked on that. What do I do to work on that? They're kind of uncertain. So did you have a coach? Did you do this through books, through videos, through whatever medium it was, maybe some on your own of just things that you thought would be helpful? What sort of specifics did you use to help yourself there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, it was all of the above, if I'm being honest, right? Like, I have been, I studied adult learning, basically. So when I got my master's, I really dove deep into how adults learn. And, a lot of times, like, a lot of companies will offer classes, and classes are important. Like, we can learn a lot in a classroom. I still do classes and workshops today in my own business, right? But it's above and beyond that usually, right? Most of our learning occurs just by living our life, by paying attention to what we're struggling with, by focusing on those things, talking to other people, reading, integrating some of what you're learning, all of that stuff. So, learning how adults actually learn. I also did a lot of coaching study. I used to be a life coach. That's what I used to call myself. And so I did the whole coach training thing and really learned a lot of tools that I was able to help me through that. Mm-hmm. Read a lot of books. Yes, for sure. I'm a reader, and it's important to me every time I read to pick at least one thing I'm going to integrate right into my own life. Yeah. So reading a lot of books, talking to other women specifically about their struggles and challenges, and collaborating on different things like that. And then, when I get myself to a point where, I've taken myself as far as I can go, then yes, I reach out and get help too, right? Because even when we're in a helping profession, we still sometimes need help for our own stuff, right? Yeah. So knowing when I've gotten myself as far as I can go on my own, and when I need to go get some assistance to help me work through the rest of it.
That outside view is so important, to get somebody else to look in, because, we already talked about that. You see what you want to see. So you see what you think is okay. You're like, I'm doing all right. And then somebody else looks in and they pull that one thread in there, and you're like, oh, why'd you find that? But it's the one you most needed them to point out.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, for me, it's definitely been all of the above. And, I think it's been kind of a cyclical process. I'll work through a part of it, and I feel like I've done a lot of healing work and kind of changed some money stories, but then something else will happen, or something else will come up, and I'll be like, oh gosh, it just came back up again, right? So that's what I like to remind people. Like, when you're doing like deep personal growth work, it's a process. It's, for most of that stuff, it's not an overnight quick fix, like check the boxes, I'm done forever, right? As much as we would like,
done. Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be so nice. And as much as we would love that to be, that is just, for most of us, not the case for most of the things. So it's really I'm lucky in that I have kind of this open-minded curiosity mindset too. So I'm always wanting to continue to learn and grow, like I said, right? So just paying attention and really just opening up to that process and understanding it's iterative and it's going to keep going for a while. As much as I want to rush it, I can't. I just have to, know that everything is happening as it's supposed to, and just letting all of that learning and growth kind of unfold naturally too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It does take time to kind of integrate all those pieces, and you figure out one, and then you work with it for a while, and then a new thing comes up. And you're like, oh gosh, I didn't know that was there. And then work on that for a while. And yeah, it's definitely a process. But I love that concept of you're just going to continue improving. It's not I'll fix it overnight and we're done, but you can make continuous improvement.
That's right.
Also, really appreciated what you said about why you wanted to make money is you're going to impact others with that money. I think a lot of people maybe struggle with the concept of I don't want money, I don't need money, it's not that important. It's very hard to save other people if you yourself are drowning.
Right.
It doesn't work. You just end up with 2 drowning people. So you gotta get yourself to a point where you can start helping others. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What kind of things have you done now or changed now that maybe you would have talked yourself out of in the past, or wouldn't have done, or wouldn't have tried, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So for me, I have been leaning into just the idea of taking bigger, bolder steps in general in life, right? So things that used to just evoke that deep fear, like, right? Forcing myself to do some of that work. And gosh, it was probably a few years ago now, but one of my biggest goal that I set for myself one year, it was actually the year that I was turning 40, was to have at least 40 new and different experiences in that year, to kind of celebrate and honor this place I was in my journey of like really forcing myself to stretch. So it was all about like anything that I normally would say no to or hold back around, I was going to make myself do at least something that pushed me down that path, right? Yeah. I think that we learn and grow so much by leaning into those areas of discomfort, by leaning into our fears, by feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Like, I'm a huge proponent of that. Like, I don't feel like our goal should be to never feel fear again. I personally don't think that's realistic. I think that sets us up for, not good things, because then we're like, oh, now I feel afraid, so I'm a bad person, right? No, right. Like, that's normal. So let's like feel the fear, but then still take action, right? And really coming into awareness on, what is this truly fear, or is it like my intuition trying to warn me of something, for example, right? Yep. So that awareness comes through trial and error. So the more that we feel something and we take action forward, we're going to start to learn, oh, that was a fear, or whoops, that was my intuition trying to warn me, right? Yep. So that's been a huge thing for me, is just leaning into those scary things and doing things that either are uncomfortable for me, that I, have always just been fearful of doing. I am an introvert by heart, right? So it takes me a while to warm up to people. Once I do, though, I'm very social. Like, I love people. I love being around people. I've had a lot of people say to me, you're not an introvert. Come on now, you fibber. That's not true, right? But I am. And I think that's a whole other topic of what introversion truly means, because I think a lot of people think it's just the sociability thing, and that's not the only piece, right?
Yeah, I actually want to talk about that real quick, because I kind of have an idea of what I think it means. Because I'm also an introvert, and no, very few people suspect that of me. I think it means where you get your energy, where you recharge. For me, if I want to recharge, I got to be by myself, quiet, read, watch TV, take a bath, something like that. That's just me hanging out. And other people, I believe extroverts, get their energy from a group. They go hang out in a group, and then they're like fired up. They're all pumped after that. Whereas I hang out in a group and I may love it, but I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, I'm worn down after that. We need some alone time to just relax and have it be really quiet. And so I kind of feel like that's the difference between introvert and extrovert. Doesn't mean you don't like people or you don't want to be around people. It just means that after you've peopled, you need to not for a little bit. So I don't know if you think the same.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so, because I'm wired that way of introversion, going to group networking events,
Mhm.
Everybody will tell you, like, if you want to build your business, you need to go do that. And I'd be like, not this girl. Like, make it happen. Like,
Uh-huh.
so I had to really like lean into that because that is important. If you want to build your business, people need to know you. They need to
Right.
know who you are. They need to have a relationship with you, right? And so I did have to lean into that. And I was terrified when I first started networking after moving where I am now and really starting to rebuild my business here. Oh man, it was scary and I didn't like it at all, but I made myself do it because one, I needed to meet people anyway. I was in a new place,
Right. Right.
but I needed to really build relationships and have people in my community that I could cross refer with or collaborate with or, whatever that needed to be. And so really just making myself do it. And now, I go network with no problem. I just, got back from a networking meeting today, actually. But it's like, I go do it now and it's much more comfortable. Like I still sometimes, depending on the event, get that little pit in my stomach, like, oh, this one's going to be bigger. And I'm really nervous. But because I've done it successfully now and I've built relationships, it's easier to do it now.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that point that you said about what you're trying to do with the networking. I think that makes it a lot more comfortable for people to go, is that the goal is to build relationships so you can introduce people when it's appropriate and they can introduce you when they think it's a good fit. Not to just go throw your cards out and tell everybody to call you. For people who are more introverted, that concept of going to a networking event and getting people to give you business just is super intimidating. You're like, no, I don't do that. But when you look at it as, I'm just trying to meet some new people so we can introduce our friends if it makes sense, then it's way, way more comfortable.
Yeah.
I used to play a little game too, and I still do it sometimes, depending on how I feel, like those big ones where you're like, oh, I've never been here before. I don't know about this group. I don't know if I'm going to know anybody. And it feels a little nervous, even though, I've been networking for years and talked to hundreds of people, but every once in a while you get that twinge. I play this game where, okay, if I set up 2 or 3 one-to-one get to know you appointments, I can go home. After that, like, all requirements are done. I don't have to talk to any more people if I don't want to. If I'm not having fun, I can leave. I just have to meet 2 or 3 new people, and then I'm done. So hopefully that helps the introverts out there of like how to make those bearable if they're really nervous about them.
Yeah, for sure. And that's always been my approach to networking too. I've never looked at it as a way of making sales. I'm much more focused on the relationship building aspect. And I'm a huge fan of one-to-ones because that's where the relationship happens. The relationship doesn't happen in the 2 minutes of exchanging our business card and elevator pitches.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. So.
Yeah, that's, and I think I noticed you smiled with the little, do you play that game too, of how many people you have to talk to before you're allowed to go home? Yeah.
Yep, that's my mission. I'm like, if I can at least get two one-to-ones out of this, I'm good. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. But sometimes you need that because you have to preserve your own, willingness to do this again.
Yeah.
And if you set your goal of, I'm gonna meet everybody there, and then you don't, you go home feeling like you failed. But if you set your plan of, okay, this event's gonna be crazy and everybody's gonna be everywhere and I don't know who I'm gonna meet. If I set 2 one-to-one, connect, get to know you, pitch free appointments so I can expand my network a little bit, meeting was worthwhile and all stress and pressure is relieved. So awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
I was kind of curious, do you have any specifics on what you did on your list of 40? I feel like networking events was one of them. Can you share a couple others? Because I'm kind of excited to know what these big challenges were. Maybe maybe they were small challenges, but it still meant something. So
yeah, that was the thing. When I set that goal, I didn't like sit down and say, I'm going to do these 40 things. It was much more like, I'm going to go do throughout the year, I'm going to do, 40 things that scare me.
40.
Yeah, at least 40. But I ended up doing like, gosh, I forget the number now. It was like 72 or 64 or some random.
Wow.
Way surpassed the 40 because like once I got into it, like it just kept spiraling. But it was everything it was both personal and business. It was small, it was big. It literally was everything. So a small example was I touched a snake once. I hate snakes. They freak me out. I don't like them. But this one was in a cage, and my daughter was intrigued by it. And the person working said, "You have an opportunity to touch it if you want." And I was like, "Okay." So like I did. I made myself do it, even though I didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Very small thing, but still, that was a fear I had of snakes, right? And so it was still a small but big thing to do. Another personal one that I did was I went parasailing.
Oh, wow.
Terrified to do that. Like I always thought it looked really cool, but I'm like, what if the kite thing crashes into the water? We're all gonna die, right? Like this is not cool.
That sounds legit to me.
But I did it and I had a great time. Like I was so nervous and scared, before I went. But I had a great time doing it, So those are like a couple of really silly, like personal examples, but like from the business standpoint, that was like, I think the year after I started my business. And so the whole idea of like, having to be that person out there, talking about your stuff and selling your stuff was overwhelming. And so I did do things like, forcing myself to network when I didn't want to, calling up a prospect, right? Like if I got a referral from someone, I don't like picking up the phone and calling people. It's another introvert thing.
Yeah, it is.
I just don't like doing that, but I would get referrals and I get prospects and they felt pretty warm leads. So I'm like, you have to call the person. And if, you're not going to get this business if you don't do it.
And you can't let them down. Your friend went out of their way to introduce you to somebody, and the other person's probably expecting you to call, so you can't just let them down and not follow through, unless you don't ever like getting introductions again. I mean, you could. That's right. The other option.
That's right. Yeah. So stuff like that. And then just, getting more comfortable, just standing up and talking about what I do with people, giving presentations or talks or whatever, like that stuff used to freak me out too. I suffered because of the low self-esteem stuff that I was grappling with, I suffered from imposter syndrome, right? A lot. So really feeling like, oh, I'm such a fraud. No one's going to buy from me because I feel they're not, how are they going to know that I'm really credible and have the experience I need to have? So I suffered from that kind of negative self-talk stuff a lot. So just doing things that kind of pushed me into that space. Like, no, honey, you know what you're doing. You've got the experience. You've got the education. You know your stuff. Just go do it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So how have things changed for you? What's new and different now?
Yeah, so I am much more open to receiving abundance now. So I think for me, like I said, it's a continual work in progress. I'll probably be working on this for a while just because it is a lifelong story. I've been stuck in this story for over 40 years, right? So it's really like continuing to work on it, but I am much more open to it now. I'm actually, as we speak, working on a whole bunch of really big plans for my business that are terrifying, but super exciting, right? So I'm making myself move forward on that stuff. I'm just approaching my business from a whole different way now. I have all these hearts up here today and on my person because I'm really focusing on this idea of loving myself enough to welcome abundance, joy, and love into my life, right? To really continue that work and really build up that self-love and that self-esteem and that confidence, and know that if I stand in my truth and speak my truth and serve with my heart, which I do anyway, that the right people are going to be attracted to that. And then I don't have to worry so much about the sales part of it, right? I can serve and show up and, be that loving, compassionate person I want to be, and the right people resonate and will come. So that's the kind of stuff that I've really been focused on as of late, is taking all the work I've done on shifting the story and the mindset and healing the lack stuff into now let's take action based on the new story and the new place we're headed, and the, welcoming in abundance, joy, and love. And a big part of that for me, has been really expressing gratitude and being aware of all the abundance, joy, and love coming into my life, no matter how small, right? I think the more that we can show gratitude for even the smallest of things, I mean, it sounds kind of silly probably, but like if I see, a penny on the floor or a dime on the floor, like sometimes I pick it up and put it in my pocket and say, thank you for the money. Or other times I'm just like, oh, I see that gift there. I acknowledge the gift. Thank you for that. I'll leave it there for the next person, right? But it's just those little things, if I got an unexpected check in the mail one day, it was like $50 or something. I still don't really know exactly what that was for, but I said, thank you for the money. It was unexpected money that I didn't know was coming, and I showed gratitude for that, right? So
I just did that today. I love that that was your example, because I literally checked my mail today and I haven't for a little while. And I opened it up like, Oh, I forgot that they owed me money. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And so just expressing gratitude for that and just really letting ourselves feel that gratitude, right? Like for me, I'm such an action oriented person a lot of the times too. So I'll just like do stuff and then I just move on to the next thing. So it's like, no, take the pause, acknowledge the work, or, show gratitude for that, or reach out to tell that I just did this yesterday with a friend. I reached out to somebody and I was like, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you in my life and how grateful I am that you recommended this book to me because, oh my gosh, it's mind blowing, right? So just those little things show the universe that you're open to receiving and you're open to welcoming all of that into your life.
That's really beautiful. And thank you for connecting it back to people as well, of, making sure that you're expressing your gratitude, not only in general for things that come to you, but to specific people when they've influenced you or something's been helpful, or just you think of them and you go, you know what, that person's awesome. I need to let them know. So
yeah.
Yep. I love that. Thank you so much, Tabby. It's been wonderful having you here.
Likewise, I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Tabby's company is called Embrace Her. She can be reached through her website, embraceherheart.com. Thank you as well to all of our listeners and viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. This show is sponsored by Serenity Financial, a Five Rings financial agency specializing in financial education, living benefits, and guaranteed lifetime income. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart on social media at MoneyHeart Show and on our website, moneyheartshow.com. Tabby, would you like to share today's money mantra?
Yes, I've been playing with a really simple one. I welcome abundance. And sometimes I even expand on that and say, I welcome abundance, joy, and love. It just really solidifies that story that we're welcoming that in and we're willing to receive it and show gratitude for it.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.